autoregressive model. So what the autoregressive model is saying is that now there's a lag in the time series. So what that means is that when we look at the equation here, what we're saying is that the sales in the current period, so if y is sales, what we have is that the sales in the current period is now dependent on the previous year's sales. So that's what we're saying. So your current year sales is dependent on your previous year's sales and the year before as well. So essentially what we're doing here is that now we're putting your year from before, your sales from year before, we're just changing that to X1. And then your sales from 2 years before, we're just saying that this is your X2. And it's basically the same as before. We run the regressions. The only difference is that now we're using the sales from before as our X1, and then the 2 years from before as our X2. So in example 2, what we have is the Office Concept Corporation has acquired a number of office units in thousands of square feet over the last 8 years. Part A developed the second order autoregressive model. So in the data here, we have the year in the first column, second column, we have the number of units. And then what we need to do is we need to calculate for the units from year before and then 2 years before. So the year before, so we're going to start from 2009. So for 2009, the year before is 4. And then for 2010, the year before is your 3. And then for 2011, the year before is basically your 2. And so on. So you can see the patterns. The same idea goes for 2 years before. For 2 years before, for 2010, what we're going to use is we're going to use the units from 2008. So we're going to put the 4 here. So we get the 4 from 2008. And the same for 2011. What we're going to use is the number from 2009, so which is 3, and so on. So once we understand this concept here, what we're going to do right now is do part B. What is the second order equation? So we're going to run the regression with these data. And after we run the regression with these data, we can get the second order equations. So I'll show you how to create this in Excel right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from 2009. So for year before, for 2009, that was basically your 2008 value, so that which is 4. So we're going to reference that to D6. So again, what we do is we reference it to D6, and then we can replicate the formulas. So we can replicate the formula. We can just drag it down, and then we're done. The same goes for 2 years before. We start from 2010, and then we equate that to our cell D6, which is the 2008 value. And then once we have set up the formula once, we can just drag it down, replicate it, and then we have the data set. So once we have the table filled out, then now we can run the regressions. And what we're going to use is for the y, our y is your column D, so that's your current year's number of units. And then for x, we have 2 x variables. We have x1, x2, so which is your unit from year before, and x2 is your unit from 2 years before. So these are our 2 x variables, 2 independent variables. So when we run the regressions, our y value will be from D8 to D13, and then our x variable will be the 2 column E and F, so E8, E13. So the reason we're starting from column E is because we don't have a complete data sets for year 2008 and 2009, so therefore we have to start from 2010. 2010 and onward, we have a complete data set, so that's what we're going to use. We go to data, and data analysis, regressions, and then we're gonna our y is your D13, and then we have your x is your E8 to F13, and then we press OK, and then we're gonna get the regression equations. So once we have the regression analysis table, then we can just format it, make it look pretty. And then what we're going to use again is the coefficients with the y-intercept. We have the slope 1 and slope 2. We're going to use these coefficients and then write it out. So with the coefficient that we calculated, then we can get the equation here. So we have y equals to 3.5. This is your y-intercept plus your slope of x1 times your x1 here, and then you have the slope of x2 times x2. So part C, we want to use the second order equation to help us to forecast the number of units for 2016. So our first step is writing the equation. We have the equation that we got from part B. And then second step is we're substituting the I, right? So we know that the year is 2016. So that's your I. So your I equals to 2016. So that's what we substitute in the second equation. Your I equals to 2016. So that means I minus 1. So 2016 minus 1 is 2015. And I minus 2 is 2016 minus 2. So it's 2014. So the next step is we substitute the value for 2015 and 2014. So for 2014, which is 4, 2015 is 6. So we substitute those values into the equation. And then the rest is simple. We just solve for y. And then what we're going to get for y 2016 is that we can get 4.625.